UFC DFS core plays for UFC Fight Night. Erin Blanchfield taking on Maycee Barber this weekend. And if you want to sign up for any of the tools that we have for MMA here at Stokastic.com, all of our MMA packages, 50% off this weekend with the promo code TAKEDOWN in all capital letters. And using some of that data, here's what's standing out the most about this weekend's slate. An initial run of sims that I did, which you guys could see the top lineups here on screen by Sim ROI. This is a smaller slate. We had a bunch of fights fall out. There was mishaps on the scale at weigh-ins today. And as a result, of all of my top lineups, my top 20 or so lineups, all of them are leaving at least $1,000 in salary on the table. So leaving salary on the table, that looks like a really good way to differentiate some of your lineups this weekend. As far as projections go, these are the top projected fighters leading the way. Erin Blanchfield, the favorite in the main event, taking on Maycee Barber. Maycee Barber also looks like a good value option on the other side. We've got Blanchfield. He at $8,900 projected for 84.71 fantasy points. So that's second top projected fighter, but about 15 fantasy points less of a projection compared to Erin Blanchfield. And then we've got Billy Goff, who is a massive favorite over Ramiz Brahimaj. Anywhere from like a minus 350 to minus 400 favorite right now is Billy Goff at just an $8,300 price tag. So he is going to be massively popular, but also projects really well. 82.4 fantasy point projection at $8,300. As far as the most popular fighters for the card, we've got two fighters north of 50% owned. That's Erin Blanchfield and Billy Goff. Then three fighters who are at least 40% owned, and Zachary Reese, Jordan Levitt, and Blanchfield. And then a handful of fighters who are just over 30% owned in Dustin Jacoby, Mateusz Gamrot, and Alan Nascimento. Now, finally, the exposures from the Sims. These are the fighters who is getting the most exposure to on the first run of lineups here, and it is Maycee Barber. Looking like a little bit of a leverage option here, showing up in a little more than half of my lineups. Now, with that said, it doesn't mean that the Sims aren't liking Erin Blanchfield as well. Blanchfield still showing up as the fourth most rostered fighter in this run of lineups. Really just has to do with ownership and trying to find leverage on a smaller card, with Blanchfield being over 50% owned, then Barber on the other side just 27% owned, and then Oki and Goff, the two other fighters who are showing up in more than half of my top lineups. If you're looking for some contrarian options, not that anybody is all that contrarian on a fight card with a limited amount of fights, but Dusko Todorovic, he is only projected for 19.8% ownership. He is showing up in just under 40% of my lineup, so looking like a pretty strong leverage option there, in addition to the leverage on Maycee Barber. And then if you're looking for another lower owned fighter, not one that's showing up in a ton of lineups, but considering all the ownership going to Billy Goff, take some shots on Brahimaj on the other side at just 15% ownership, somebody else who the Sims are liking to be contrarian.